now 10 years since fur farming was banned in the United Kingdom. And for those of us who remember when there were fur farms in this country, it's an amazing thought to think we haven't had fur farms here for 10 years. And that in itself is a massive achievement. The first country in the world ever to ban fur farming on ethical grounds. So that in itself is a great achievement. It shows how far we've come. It's important to remember that the ban on fur farming didn't happen overnight, and it was a long, hard struggle. And some of you here were involved in it, and I was as well, and you remember them. And it was a struggle over several decades by some committed activists. And some of us remember the days when there were still fur farms around the British countryside. And in those days, fur protests weren't just against shops, we actually went out to the fur farms. And we witnessed firsthand, we saw the horrors of the fur farms. And we saw the misery, and we smelled the stench, and we saw the filth of the animals trapped in the cages. And we heard the cries of the animals on the fur farms, the pitiful screams of the animals. And then one of the sounds that you most remember from fur farms is the terrible scratching as thousands and thousands of animals scratch at the bars of the cage. And you can hear this scratching and this screams of the animals from hundreds of metres away. And you can smell them. And we don't have that anymore in this country. And you've got to remember that it's an incredible progress that we've made. And many times along the way when we were fighting against the fur farms, people got discouraged and thought, well, it's taking too long, and many people said that we couldn't do it. And if we'd listened to those campaigners then we'd never really got rid of fur farms. And there would still be millions of foxes and rabbits and minks suffering and dying in fur farms in the United Kingdom now. But we didn't give up, we kept going, and in the end we got there. And that's something we need to remember. Just keep going, keep fighting, and you do win in the end. We've seen it happen and we'll see it again.
Good to see, yeah.
It's important to remember also that the government didn't ban fur farming out of compassion for the animals. It wasn't that they cared about the animals at all. The reason they banned fur farming was because of pressure from campaigners like us here today. And in fact, by the time fur farming was banned in 2001, the fur farmers themselves were in favour of the fur farming ban. And in fact, it was the fur retailers, the British Fur Trade Association, who were against it. And so it just shows that you do win in the end and pressure does pay off. And it's also important to remember that the ban on fur farming in this country, it's not just important for this country, it's also provided an inspiration for other activists in other countries all over the world. And now other countries have taken up this fight, and we see that there are bans in the pipeline in countries such as Croatia, Italy, Germany and Holland. And already Austria has banned fur farming as well. So we see that what we're doing here is inspiring activists throughout the world, and that's why it's important that we keep on fighting. And now we're even seeing traditional fur farming countries like Norway and Sweden and Denmark, where recently undercover investigations have shown horrific suffering on fur farms. And now all four of the Scandinavian countries are seriously discussing bans on fur farms. Now Scandinavia is actually the heart of the fur farming international fur trade. So it's an amazing step forward, and something we couldn't have even dreamed about 10 years ago. And all of the activists in these countries, they all accept that it's activists here in the UK who have inspired them. And so it's important that we keep working and we keep inspiring activists throughout the world. It's not just in this country. People from all over the world, millions of activists all over the world are watching towards us for inspiration. And just because the fur farms are in another country, it doesn't make the suffering any less. So it's important we continue to fight against fur by fighting for a ban on the sale and the import of fur to the UK, and stop fur once and for all in the UK. And that's why we're here today, to send a clear message to the London and the global fashion industry that it's time to stop the fur and ditch fur and stop supporting animal torture. Today we'll be marching around Knightsbridge, South Kensington and Chelsea, past many of the most famous names in fashion. On the first big street that we come to, when we're going this way, we come onto Sloane Street, and it's the first main street that we come to. And this really is a street of shame when it comes to the country. On one short stretch of road, we're passing shops such as Gucci, Prada, Dolce Gabbana, Versace, Fendi, Joseph, Armani, Louis Vuitton, all very famous names in fashion who continue to promote the horrible fur trade. In fact, literally every second shop along Sloane Street is still selling fur. 10 years after fur farming was banned here. And that's a scandal. It's a scandal we're going to put right today by naming and shaming those shops. But as I said, every second shop along there is a fur shop. So there's no point in stopping outside every one. Because all you'll be doing is missing the ones out at the top. So show your disapproval of these shops by all means. But don't hang around the first one you come to because we'll miss all the others out. And there'll be people behind you wanting to show their disapproval of that shop as well. So by all means show your disapproval, but keep the march going. There are fur shops all the way around today. Wherever we go today, we'll be seeing fur in the shops. News along the route today. Also on Sloane Street, directly opposite Fendi and Gucci, there's the shop called Escada. And I'm sure a lot of you already know about this, but Escada has just announced a fur-free policy after a 3-year campaign, an international campaign in many countries. And some of you may not have heard of Escada, but Escada is one of the biggest fashion chains in the world with hundreds of shops in over 60 countries. So it's a massive victory for us and a big blow against the fur trade. So we're a big cheer for Escada when we go past the shop later on, because it's a sign that we are making progress again. It's another example of the progress we're making. And it's no coincidence that the announcement of a fur-free policy from Escada came just 3 days before our International Day of Action. So once again it shows that pressure does work. They don't like to be exposed. So if you keep fighting, we will win in the end. And Escada shows that's the case. 3 years of campaigning and you do win in the end. And at the top of Sloane Street, the very top, when we reach Knightsbridge Tube Station, we'll be passing Harvey Nichols. And Harvey Nichols is one of the most prestigious and famous department stores in the world. And it's an upmarket department store which used to be a bastion of the fur trade. So in 2003, when we started a campaign against Harvey Nichols, few of us gave much of a hope. They didn't think it would succeed. Again, people said it's too big a target. But within just a few months of the campaign, just a few protests, Harvey Nichols issued a press release saying that they were also announcing a fur-free policy. And this was a massive victory for us, a huge department store chain. And again, this announcement came just a few days before a planned day of action. And again, it shows how pressure works. So in 2003, when we started a campaign against Harvey Nichols, few of us gave much of a hope. They didn't think it would succeed. Again, people said it's too big a target. But within just a few months of the campaign, just a few protests, Harvey Nichols issued a press release saying that they were also announcing a fur-free policy. And this was a massive victory for us, a huge department store chain. And again, this announcement came just a few days before a planned day of action. And again, it shows how pressure works. And from here we moved on to Selfridges. The Selfridges went fur free. And again, a massive, these Selfridges have been known for over 100 years as a luxury department store that's always sold fur. People said you'd never get Selfridges to go fur free. Well, they are fur free. And from there we moved on to Liberty, and Liberty was fur free within just 2 protests. So we now were in a situation where every department store in the United Kingdom had a fur-free policy, with the exception of one department store, which was Harrods. And by coincidence, we'll be coming to Harrods shortly after Harvey Nichols, and we'll be stopping at Harrods for a short speech and a minute's silence to remember the animals there. Minute now, let's just reflect and think of the animals, and after that minute let's make as much noise as we can and let Harrods send the new owners of Harrods a clear message. So after 1 minute let's make it loud and clear, but for just the next minute please respect 1 minute's silence. And why they are a massive influence on the rest of the retail, especially fashion and the fur trade, and why it's important that we got the department stores fur free, and why it's important that we keep the department stores fur free. I think I heard figures once that just one of those hundreds of department stores sell more in 1 hour than most of fashion shops do in a whole year. And that's just 1 out of hundreds of department stores. So this just shows you how influential and important the department stores are. And we've got the department stores to go fur free, and it's important that we keep them fur free. As many people
will know there's been a big fight against the vintage fur industry recently. And the vintage fur industry and the fur industry in general have been trying to make a comeback, selling through the vintage market and trying to bring back the real fur image back onto our streets. Activists in London went undercover at two of London's top furriers. And the furriers themselves have actually admitted that they're supplying most of the vintage fur industry with real brand new furs, trying to bring in money, and that this money is keeping the furriers going, keeping them supplying this industry. One of these places, and one of the main places in London, which is a big vintage fur market, is Brick Lane. Now in Brick Lane, there's been an intensive campaign started up over the past month, fighting against these shops that think they can supply real fur, think they can carry on selling real fur. We've already managed to stop over 3-4 shops selling real vintage fur, and now we've moved on to Beyond Retro, the largest in the area. There's been an intense battle on Brick Lane. A few weeks ago, 40 people ran up and down the street and stopping the shops selling real fur, interrupting this disgusting trade from going on and fighting it to the bitter end. Beyond Retro have not only had demos in the UK, but they've also had demos at their Canadian owners' homes. People internationally are fighting up and supporting the campaign because London is a vital battleground in the UK for the sale of real fur. In London is the place where we're going to win this battle. You can go elsewhere in the country and you'll struggle to find a place still selling real fur. But London, the industry think they can hide in this corner, think they can hide away and get away with supporting this cruelty and disgusting trade. There's been demos against furriers, people standing up and going outside London's top furriers, telling them that there's no escape from us, that we're never going to get away whilst their sick businesses are continuing. Gale Furs is one. All we've had to do so far is turn up outside this shop, and they fear us so much they shut for the day. There's also been actions against the London Fur Company. Now the London Fur Company, going back about 10-15 years, used to own shops on the high streets. It was at one time London's biggest furriers. Now they're down to a shabby little website. They can't even go to fashion shows anymore because activists have turned up and de-locked onto their stands. Now what we've got to say about the fur trade in London is that we are winning. We're never going away until this bitter trade goes down once and for all. As I already said, you can go outside London and you can't find real fur. But we need to do what it takes and get out on the streets of London once again, fight this disgusting industry and bring it to its knees and slaughter it once and for all. For the animals imprisoned inside fur farms across the globe, we need to do what it takes and we need to fight this till the bitter end. The message is here. Today we'll be marching through one of London's top areas to sell brand new fur. And we've got to make it loud and clear. We've got to send a strong message to this disgusting industry that we'll fight this to the end, we're never going away, and we always win. Now people afterwards, we're going up to do some demos at some other fur shops. So people want to gather around here at the end of the demo, and then we'll be announcing where we're going. Last time, after the last national, we had 40 people at Brick Lane, which added a massive amount of pressure and led to a number of the shops stopping selling real fur. So fear that this might happen again. We've got to stamp out this industry once and for all, so come along afterwards and get involved in fighting the fur trade. Thank you.